Hello, rich ones. Welcome to our space. My name is Christine Ishampipo, the Money Mechanic, and I help you fix your finances. I am on a mission to equip Africa's younger population with adequate financial literacy, advice, and strategy so they can journey to financial freedom and live life purposefully on their own terms and to the fullest because money is no more a barrier. I want you to live your best life. The Hot Money Talks podcast is a series of honest, open, and transparent money conversations that will guide you on your journey to financial freedom. Here on the podcast, we believe 100% that financial freedom is possible with the right set of knowledge, the right amount of time, and the right circle of people. Now, on today's episode of the podcast, we will be discussing what to do if your bank account is down to zero. Now, it's a very daunting situation to find your bank account balance dwindle down to zero, right? And I'm sure that there are many of us, myself included, that at some point, if not even currently, have bank account balances that are down to zero. The question now becomes, how do you get out of this? What do you do? Now, with a few strategic steps, you can definitely navigate this tough time and build a more sustainable path to financial stability. So here are some tips on what to do if you find yourself in this predicament. The very first thing would be that you need to assess your situation. So you must first and foremost get a very clear understanding of your financial situation. Look through your bank statements, track your expenses, identify what you spend money the most on. See what is really taking your money. See where your money has been going. And try and figure out what exactly could be the problem. Because sometimes we just assume, and assumption does not work if you want to really get it right with your finances. You have to be accurate, you have to work with facts, right? So you need to assess your situation and find out what exactly is the problem. How exactly did I get here, right? And then you'd be able to figure out where to go next. The second tip would be to cut unnecessary expenses. So trimming down your expenses at this time would be crucial, right? So you may need to cancel any subscriptions you don't need. You may need to focus more on cooking at home instead of eating out. You may consider using public transportation instead of buying a car, and just basically, your finances and your lifestyle, right? You may need to just cut off unnecessary expenses so that you can fix up with your finances. So in times like this, every little bit helps in stretching the resources that you have. Another tip would be to start using a budget, or create a budget rather. Creating a realistic budget that outlines your income and your expenses will help you keep you on track. You can also go the extra mile to use budgeting apps, budgeting tools that will help you monitor your spending. Stick to your budget and then adjust it as necessary to reflect changes in your financial situation. Now, why is using a budget important? Using a budget is so important because it will enable you to know where your money is going to from the very beginning. So many of us don't use a budget before we spend, right? And that's what usually now makes us end up wondering, but I had X amount of money yesterday. Where did all the money go? Right? Many times when we're stuck in that place, it is because we did not have a plan for our money from the very beginning. But when you use a budget, you're able to tell your money where you want it to go rather than wondering where it went. All right. A fourth tip if your bank account is down to zero, is to find additional sources of income. So you must look for ways to boost your income. So this could mean actually having a source of income, because there are some people who don't have any source of income. They depend on people, depend on hand-me-downs. You might need to get a source of income if you don't have one, or take on an additional source of income. You can think of freelancing, have a side hustle, right? Or if there are items you have lying around that you don't need, you can sell them off. Every extra money that you can earn towards rebuilding, your financial cushion is very, very important, right? And usually I would say that there are usually two solutions to your financial problems. You either reduce your expenses or you increase your income. It's quite simple. So if your bank account is down to zero, obviously you need to be able to boost up your income. So the question now is, how can you do this? What knowledge do you have? What skills do you have? What experience do you have that you can leverage on to increase your income? The next tip would be to prioritize your spending, right? So here you would need to focus on spending on things that are essential, things that are needs, okay? Things that are necessary to your survival, like rent, utilities, food, transportation. And then to be able to bounce back up, you may need to avoid making any large purchases or even taking on debts until your financial situation improves. This is a sacrifice you would need to make to be able to build yourself back up. Prioritize your spending. Another tip is to build an emergency fund. Now, this would come in handy, when the going gets tough, right? And once you stabilize your finances and obviously moved your bank account from being at the point where it is zero, and you build it up, you need to prioritize building an emergency fund. And this emergency fund is going to provide a safety net for the future. Now, an emergency fund basically is a accumulation of at least 3 to 6 months of your living expenses, saved up somewhere in a bank account, right? And the idea of having an emergency fund is that you are able to have a safety net in cases of emergencies, or in cases where you lose your primary source of income. You are able to still, take care of yourself for at least 3 to 6 months before you find your footing. That's the idea of an emergency fund. Then, of course, another tip would be to seek professional advice, right? This is where people like the Money Mechanic, yours truly, come in handy, right? You may consider, or you should consider, consulting with, someone that can help you with your finances, someone that can help you develop a long-term financial plan, someone that can provide valuable insights on how you can manage your money and avoid future financial pitfalls. The truth is, you can never ever get enough of advice, right? And so if you find yourself consistently, falling back to zero level with your finances, then it is high time you seek professional advice. And the Money Mechanic is here to help. So if you need this kind of advice, feel free to shoot me an email at talktothemoneymechanic@gmail.com, and I would love to go on your financial journey with you. I will also drop the email address in the show notes, and you can pick it up from there and shoot me an email. The final tip on today's episode is stay positive and learn. It's important to stay positive, learn from your experiences, and take steps to avoid finding yourself with a zero account balance in the future. Educate yourself about basic financial literacy, learn to save, learn to spend wisely, learn to make the right financial decisions. You see, one principle that I believe very strongly is that it is not wealth that brings financial literacy. It is financial literacy that brings wealth. And that is why it is crucial that you spend time, that you spend resources, right, learning about your finances, because you will definitely see the difference when you apply yourself to learning about your finances. And I'm so glad and I applaud you for even listening to this podcast, because this is one of the many ways that you can apply yourself to learning about your finances. Now, you may be dealing with a zero bank account balance right now, and the journey may look like it's so daunting and it may look tough. But I want to encourage you and let you know that with a disciplined approach and the right mindset, you can definitely overcome a zero balance and work towards financial security. Remember that the goal is to build good financial habits that will help you establish a solid foundation. And once you have a solid foundation, you definitely have something to build on. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you found value today, please share the link to this episode with your circle. And remember that new episodes of the Hot Money Talks podcast drop every Saturday, and you can listen to them on your favorite podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Do well to follow the show on either of these platforms so that you are notified whenever an episode is released. Recommendations are powerful, so please tell your friends and your family about this podcast so we can go on this journey together. If you'd like to connect with me on other platforms, do well to follow The Money Mechanic at The Money Mechanic page on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I hope most importantly that you will take action on your finances today. Sending you love, light, and a sprinkle of money in between.